It started with an email. No subject line, no greeting. Just a message from Garrett Stroud, the new COO, telling me to meet him in conference room B at 8 a.m. I stared at it, still wearing my pajamas, my coffee barely warm. After 16 years at Cardenix Global, I'd seen some odd things. But this had the smell of something worse. I showed up early. That's who I've always been. Early, prepared, steady. Garrett was already there, wearing his usual smug expression, standing with his arms crossed like he was about to deliver a keynote. He didn't even offer me a seat. "Camilla," he said like he barely knew my name. "Let's keep this short." What followed was a mess of empty buzzwords: efficiency, optimization, realignment. And then came the real line. "Your role is no longer considered mission critical." I didn't say anything at first. I just looked at him. "You're firing me," I said, flat. "We're transitioning you out," he replied, trying to sound kind. I took the folder the HR woman handed me. Inside were the standard forms: termination agreement, NDA, some useless info about severance. Then I stood up, looked Garrett in the eye, and said, "You'll regret this." I didn't wait for his reaction. I just walked out. Calm, unshaken, but burning inside. I didn't go home. I didn't cry. I didn't even call anyone. Instead, I drove, past my exit, past the skyline, past everything familiar. I ended up at a rundown diner off the highway. You know the kind: burnt coffee, old booths, and the smell of bacon that never really leaves the air. That's where I called Alex. Alex Moreno was once my closest ally at Cardenix. We'd built systems together, fixed disasters together. There was even a moment when I thought there might be more between us. But he left 2 years ago. Quietly, no warning. But when I called, he answered. "Camila?" he asked, surprised. "They fired me," I told him. "Garrett, of course." "Who else?" Alex didn't miss a beat. "Come over." And I did. Alex lived in a high-rise apartment that looked like it came straight out of a design magazine. Exposed brick, sharp corners, modern everything. But he answered the door in a hoodie and bare feet, holding 2 glasses of wine. "I saved your favorite," he said. For a while, we just talked. I told him everything: how I spent years building our logistics system from the ground up, how the current operation still ran on the foundation I created. They'd just renamed it and acted like it was new. "They're still using your work?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "They just slapped a new name on it, but it's all mine. Every algorithm, every line." He leaned forward. "Did you ever get that in writing?" I pulled out the envelope. Inside was my original contract, signed and notarized, and right there, clear as day, Clause 14. G, intellectual property rights to anything I developed using my own equipment on my own time. He read it and looked up at me. "You didn't just get fired," he said. "They broke the contract." I nodded, and I wasn't planning to take it lying down. The next 2 days were a blur of coffee, notes, and long hours. Alex and I gathered everything: copies of the original code, screenshots of my name in the system logs, archived diagrams, timestamps. We even found vendor contracts still referring to Navix Core, the original name I gave the system before Garrett rebranded it as StroudLink. By Monday morning, we had a full portfolio. I sent it to my lawyer at 8:12 a.m. No drama, just the facts. Subject line: IP violation, Navix Core ownership. She called back within hours. "Camila," she said, "this isn't just about being wrongfully terminated. This is a breach of contract and possibly intellectual property theft." "I know," I said. "Are you sure you're ready to go after them?" I looked out the window, thinking of all the nights I stayed late building that system, coding until 2 a.m. while everyone else was home with their families. "I'm more than ready," I told her. And I meant it. Back at Cardenix, the cracks were already starting to show. The system, my system, was glitching. Not enough to cause chaos, but enough for people to notice. A shipment went missing, invoices disappeared, a European client complained about outdated frameworks, and just like that, people began whispering my name again. Didn't Camilla build all of this? Why would they let her go? Does Garrett even know what he's doing? Then one night, an intern named Harper Lee, just doing her job, found something. She was running diagnostics on the renamed system, trying to patch a minor bug. That's when she saw it. My author tag. Romero Quiroz, still buried deep in the code, still active, still alive. She took screenshots and she sent them up the chain, not to Garrett, but to the engineering lead. Her message was short. Found something odd. Should we be worried? And just like that, the first spark of what I'd built, what they'd tried to bury, started glowing again. I didn't need to be in the building to feel the shift. By the end of that week, messages started rolling in. Former coworkers checking in under the guise of just wanted to say hi. But I knew the tone. I could hear it in the way they worded things. Something was cracking. A junior developer mentioned how they were rerunning my old error handling protocol because the new one kept missing critical exceptions. Another engineer said he was looking through legacy files and kept seeing my initials in the logs. They were nervous. And Garrett? He didn't have a clue. He kept doing those ridiculous live Q&A meetings, walking around like a visionary while the whole foundation of the company began to hum, like it was remembering who built it. I didn't reply to anyone yet. I didn't gloat. I didn't post. I waited. Because the only thing louder than a scream is silence backed by evidence. On Saturday morning, I drove out to my storage unit. It was small, dusty, and filled with half-forgotten tech from the last decade. External drives, old monitors, outdated routers. But I knew what I was looking for, and I found it. A black hard drive taped inside a shoebox labeled 2016 Tax. Inside, the original system logs from the year I launched Navix Core, time-stamped, authenticated, designed and built in my apartment with my own equipment. I brought it home, plugged it in, and started going through everything line by line. It was all still there. Every algorithm, every update, every framework. At 2 a.m., I finished compiling the updated evidence package. This time, I added a memo for the board. Subject line, ownership rights under Clause 14. G. In the message, I laid it all out clearly. They terminated me while actively using my IP. They rebranded it and pushed it to vendors. No consent, no credit, no compensation. I attached everything and hit send. Then I slept like a stone. By Monday, things escalated. One of the board members, Nadia Heller, replied to me directly. Her message was short but sharp. Available to speak today? That same morning, my lawyer called. They've initiated an internal audit, she told me. Your name came up at least 23 times in system documentation over the past quarter. That was more than enough. Garrett didn't know it yet, but the audit meant they were already digging into everything he'd signed. Every contract, every change, every lie. And from what I heard, someone in legal flagged the rebranded system for violating licensing rules because it was still built on top of my code. The only difference was the name and the marketing spin. I waited, I watched, and I smiled because the higher they build their castles on someone else's work, the harder it is when that work starts demanding acknowledgement. I wasn't expecting anyone that night. So when the doorbell rang around 7:30, I looked through the peephole and froze. It was Jonah Carrick, the original founder, the man who signed my contract over a decade ago. He looked older, thinner, but still sharp-eyed. When I opened the door, he just nodded. Can I come in? I didn't say anything. I just stepped aside. He sat at my kitchen table. No small talk, no smiles. Just seriousness. I read your memo, he said. I also read your contract. You're absolutely right. I waited. You were never supposed to be disposable. He continued. That clause, Clause 14G, I gave that to you because I trusted you. You kept this place running when no one else could. I never imagined it would be used like this. Garrett doesn't see people, I said quietly. Only numbers. He nodded. Then make him feel the cost. That's all he said before he stood up and walked out. He didn't need to say more. I already planned to. The next day, they invited me to a meeting. Private, high floor. Only 3 names on the invite. Me, Nadia Heller, and the company's general counsel. When I walked in, they were already seated, folders in front of them, serious expressions on their faces. Camila, Nadia said, we've reviewed your documentation. You're entitled to more than just compensation. This situation could lead to liability for the company if it's not resolved properly. The lawyer slid a new agreement across the table. It included reinstatement, 6 months back pay, and a 2-year licensing deal for Navix Core under terms I would control. I read it carefully, every word. Then I asked one question. What happens to Garrett? Nadia looked me in the eye. That depends. Do you want his job? I paused and smiled. Not really, I said, but I want him to answer to someone who understands what value actually looks like. The strange thing about leaving something you've built is that it never really leaves you. Even after I walked out of that boardroom with their revised offer in my hand, I felt hollow. Not angry, not victorious, just clear. Everything I'd built was still running. Everything Garrett had touched was crumbling. And yet I wasn't sure I wanted to go back. I didn't want to fix what he broke. I wanted to make something new. Something mine. I stayed quiet that week. Watched the ripples unfold from a distance. 3 major clients sent warning letters to the company. 2 of them threatened to cancel contracts if the IP wasn't clarified. The board went into lockdown mode. Garrett's name stopped appearing in email subject lines. Mine started showing up instead. It was quiet, unspoken, but everyone knew. I wasn't gone, not really. They scheduled another meeting. This one felt final. Same boardroom, same chairs. But the mood was different. Heavier. Garrett sat at the far end of the table, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. No blazer, no jokes, just pale skin and a legal pad he hadn't touched. I walked in and placed a USB drive on the table. This, I said, is a read-only demo of the system you're currently running. It was clean, strip it down, clear. On the bottom right corner of every screen, in faint watermark, it read, built on Navix Core, property of C. Romero. I sat down. Here's the truth. I told them, this company was built on people like me. People who weren't looking for a spotlight, just a place to do the work right. I looked over at Garrett. And when you ignore those people long enough, the whole structure begins to rot. Garrett didn't speak. He just stared at the USB, like it was a bomb. They offered me the position, Executive Director of Systems Integrity, full oversight, full autonomy. My name, in ink, above the infrastructure Garrett once claimed as his own. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I said, I want something else first. They paused. I want a public acknowledgement of the system's creator. I want a licensing agreement that reflects my work. And I want every client contract that uses Navix Core to be corrected. Nadia blinked. You want your name back? I smiled. Exactly? No one argued. Because they knew I didn't need the title. I already had the leverage. A few days later, I got a call from Garrett. Voicemail, actually. He sounded different. Camilla, he said, I know I made mistakes. If you're willing, I'd really like to meet. Talk. I think we both want what's best for the company. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked into my lawyer's office and finalized the agreement with Carrington Freight, a competitor, the hungrier one that didn't just want to hire me, but wanted to license Navix Core on my terms. They offered me full ownership of my framework. A team, a quiet office by the water. No meetings, I didn't call myself. I took the offer, and when I left the boardroom for the final time, I said one thing to Garrett as I passed him in the hallway. You didn't just fire an employee, I said. You freed a founder. And then I walked away. Not bitter, not angry, free. Now I work with people who value ideas, not just titles. I wake up early, but not because I have to, because I want to. Sometimes I think back to that day in Conference Room B, the one where Garrett thought he was cutting costs, when he was really cutting his own safety net. And sometimes I get emails from people at Cardenix, not the board, not HR, the engineers, the interns, the ones who used to walk past me without realizing I held the entire system together. Now they send messages like, "Thank you for building something real. You were always the core, and that means more than any title." I didn't need to burn the company down. I just had to remind them who wired the lights.